Coming to you live from the Tino Studios in Minooka, Illinois. I'm your host, Bucky Shanks, and this is Tino Tonight. Welcome everybody to the Week 5 edition of Tino Tonight. Not much to talk about before we jump into it. Few teams have turned their attention to tanking to get ahead of the curve. Everybody else still fighting and in contention. But that's all I got to start off the show. Let's jump into milestones. Head coach Scott Babowitz became the third coach in NCAA history to reach 10 wins versus the top 10 at 10-5. He joins Lanny Strong, and who else but Kenny Bellafuck is the only others to do it. Josh Hamilton became the 16th coach in NCAA history to reach the 30-win plateau. He's a career 30-25. Brian Jones and Kenny Bellafuck became the second and third coaches in NCAA history to win 30 games in conference play. Florida State's Cam Bishop was the first to do that. Back to Josh Hamilton, he's also won his 20th game in the ACC this past week. Chris Vardy and Teron Kane also picked up conference win number 20 this past week. And that brings us to the top 25. Coming in at 25, Notre Dame. The Irish entered the land of the ranked after a huge win over Virginia Tech. This is the first time in 5 tries Notre Dame was able to take down Virginia Tech. I guess you could say Notre Dame finally got the Hokie off their back. Shut the fuck up, Bucky. Syracuse is up next, who the Irish have also never beaten in 4 tries. Number 24, Oklahoma State. The Cowboys beat West Virginia for the 4th straight year to improve to 2-2. Texas is up next. Number 23, Florida State. The Seminoles continued their annual dominance of NC State, making it 4 in a row now over the Wolfpack. It'll be a tougher test this week as Clemson comes to town. Number 22, Iowa State. The Cyclones got upset by TCU and as a result went free-falling down the ranks. Texas Tech is up next. Number 21, Texas Tech. The Red Raiders, as previously mentioned, will take on Iowa State this week. They will be going in, riding some momentum as well after a huge win for the program after upsetting the 9th-ranked Jayhawks last week. That was head coach Brandon Stump's first win versus the top 25 and top 10, and as a result, Texas Tech finds himself ranked for the first time in quite some time. Number 20, Michigan. The Wolverines took down Nebraska last week, giving themselves a 3-2 record all-time versus the Huskers. Rutgers comes to Ann Arbor next. Number 19, Tennessee. The Volunteers made it 5 in a row over South Carolina when they won last week. A tanking Auburn team is up next. Number 18, Kansas. The Jayhawks got knocked off last week by Texas Tech. Head coach Tyler said his team came out flat. Personally, I think this was the classic look-ahead spot. I think Kansas seen 2022 Tino Coach of the Year Kenny Bellafuck next in the schedule and looked right past Texas Tech. Number 17, Kansas State. The Wildcats got destroyed by over 400 points to Kenny Bellafuck in Oklahoma. It won't be any easier this week for first-year head coach Dan Mullen. Baylor is next. Number 16, Syracuse. The Orange beat North Carolina by over 200 points. They welcome Notre Dame to town next. Number 15, UCLA. The Bruins took down Washington to get back even at 2-2. Up next is Oregon, who UCLA has beaten 4 times in 6 tries. Number 14, Purdue. The Boilermakers beat Michigan State to improve to 3-1. Huge game with Maryland is up next. Number 13, Oregon. The Ducks took advantage of the schedule as the 899 points would have lost against 38 of the other possible 48 opponents. They will need to be better this week as UCLA is up next. Number 12, Alabama. The Tide knocked off LSU to improve to 3-1 on the year and 3-2 versus LSU. A big game with Georgia is next. Number 11, Baylor. The Bears beat Texas to get to 3-1. First-year coach Dan Mullen and the Wildcats are up next. Number 10, Iowa. The Hawkeyes got destroyed by Penn State by over 400 points. They get Wisconsin next. Number 9, Virginia Tech. The Hokies dropped to 3-1 after losing to Notre Dame. No time to think about the loss as a red-hot Miami team, Bucky, comes to town next. Number 8, Georgia. The Bulldogs knocked off a tanking Auburn team. Big game this week with Alabama. Number 7, Maryland. The Terrapins beat Wisconsin in a low-scoring affair. They will need to improve and quick as a high-scoring Purdue team comes to town next. Number 6, Clemson. The Tigers were the latest victims of the Hurricanes as this league fights for climate justice. Clemson kept the team in Florida for the week and heads to Tallahassee next to take on Florida State. Number 5, Miami. The Hurricanes continue to assault people with Clemson being the latest victims. Virginia Tech is up next to try and put a stop to the madness. Number 4, USC. The Trojans hammered Arizona by almost 400 points to remain unbeaten. USC continues to cruise along somewhat under the radar. They get Cal next. Number 3, Penn State. The Nittany Lions destroyed Iowa last week and get a tanking Ohio State team this week. So Penn State will be 4-1 heading into Week 6. Number 2, Oklahoma. The Sooners welcomed first-year coach Dan Mullen to the gauntlet that is the Big 12 by putting over 1,350 points, Bucky. They put that on them by winning by over 400 points, Bucky. Kansas is up next, where Oklahoma holds a 4-1 record all-time versus the Jayhawks. And number 1, Florida. The Gators beat Vanderbilt to remain perfect on the year. The Gators have now won 13 of their last 17 games, and Florida will go on the road next week to take on Mississippi State. And that'll do it for this week's edition of Tino Tonight. For everybody here at Tino Studios at Buckingham Palace, as always, I'm your host, Bucky Shanks. Good night, everybody.